Welcome to the Wellness Hustle podcast. I'm Kirsty Taylor, your host, a writer, a storyteller, and a wanderer of life. I struggled so much in the past, and it wasn't until I started to focus on myself that I saw true change and really started living my life. This podcast is aimed to help you realize that this whole work hard, play hard mantra bullshit has not been cutting it. We need to focus on what truly matters. Think of this podcast as a tool for finally hustling for yourself. So let's shift our focus from the external to the internal, because in the end, you deserve it. Welcome back to the second episode. If you can't tell, which maybe you can't because I feel like I'm kind of just nasally in general, I am sick. I have a bit of a cold. I can feel it in my chest, in my nose, in my head. But the great thing about doing a podcast is that you can literally do it from anywhere, including your bed, because that's literally where I am right now. I am laying in my bed. I hustle for myself, obviously, and I take getting better very seriously when I am sick. I don't get sick often, and when I am sick, I care for my body, including getting as much sleep as I can, not exercising, relaxing, attempting to minimize stress, all that good jazz. And I actually made my favorite, let's say, remedy. It is a mixture of hot water, lemon juice, ginger, turmeric, and a bit of honey, all mixed up into a tea. It's delicious. I love it. And I drink like as many as I can during the day. 2, 3, 4 cups of it. It's delicious, and that's currently what I'm doing. I'm in my bed. This week I had on an awesome girl. Actually, we found out we're both Aquarian sisters. What to all my Aquarian sisters out there, I've found that I'm not super into like horoscopes and stuff, but I've found that Aquarians tend to be very entrepreneurial and free-spirited and go-getters. So it was pretty awesome to see that Ava was actually, or to find out that Ava was actually an Aquarius too. She's 5 days younger than me. That's pretty wild, I think. We celebrated our birthdays both recently. I think we talked about it in the podcast. Anyways, she is a really awesome person. I actually found her on Medium. So I started writing on Medium at the beginning of this year, 2019. And so there's a lot of articles out there on how to be a better writer, yada yada, all that good stuff. And there's one person that I really resonated with, which is Ava. And she is just very transparent about the idea and the way of being a freelance writer, what it's like, what the life is like of being a freelance writer. She's very transparent about it. She's very open. And then she has been in the past a digital nomad, and I guess she is now. She's in Los Angeles. She's not from here, so she's been in Los Angeles for a little bit longer than she thought she would be. But that's awesome because I got to interview her in person. Whoop whoop. It's my second interview, technically, but it's my first in-person interview, which was fun. And another hurdle to cross in the podcasting world, because I did not know what equipment I needed and all that good stuff. It's actually a lot less complicated than I thought it would be. Doing this podcast is a lot of fun, and figuring out all of these technical issues and technical equipment things that come up, it's really fun. It's like a big old puzzle to solve. And yeah, I like puzzles. So I interview Ava today on what it's like to be a digital nomad and what it's like to be a freelancer and really change your life when you're not seeing inspiration and purpose in it. She has a lot of good wisdom, very inspiring. I hope you guys enjoy it. Here we go. I'm going to try to not sound very sick.
Prepare yourself.
Exactly. Like, can't hide this a little bit of phlegm that's in my nose. Okay. All right. Hi, guys. You know what? I don't know how to pronounce your name exactly.
Oh, it's Ava Gutierrez.
Gutierrez. What? No.
Mexican.
Oh,
yeah.
Very cool.
So it's Ava spelled Eva.
Uh-huh.
For terrible branding issues, and then Gutierrez.
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 Close
So
enough.
bad at that.
It's literally fine.
Okay, so I'm here with Ava, and she is a freelance writer, digital nomad. Anything you want to add to that list?
Try and keep it short and sweet. So yeah, freelance
There you go.
writer and traveling digital nomad.
There you go.
Mm.
Where are you from originally?
Rhode Island.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's like, how often do you meet someone from Rhode Island?
I know,
Personally,
I get that so often. But it's kind of funny. I'll be like literally across the world, and someone will be like, "Oh, I've been to Rhode Island." And I'm like, why? That's so random. Yeah.
I think, and I hope this isn't mean, but I feel like it's like a lot of lacrosse and sailing. Am I wrong?
No, it's a lot of sailing, a little bit of lacrosse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just feel like that's very like the New England type area.
Yeah, like nautical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's us for sure.
Very cool. So, how about you tell me a little bit about how you got into the freelancing world?
Yeah, so I started writing like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't take it seriously at the time. I was in college, so I was way more focused on my studying.
Mm-hmm.
So I landed 2 awesome opportunities. So I wrote for Elite Daily when they were like in their prime. Yes.
Wow.
Like when I look back on this, I'm like, wow, that was the setup.
Oh
I could have like gone so hard with that. But so I wrote for Elite Daily, and I was a contributing writer. So I didn't get paid, but I was able to publish as much as I wanted onto their platform.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then I landed a gig with Wanderlust Yoga Festival to go to their festival for free for 4 days. And in turn, I just had to write an article each day.
What?
So those
That's
are my
crazy.
first 2 like freelance writing jobs.
So you live in Hollywood. You know Wanderlust has like their own studio up there now, right?
Yeah,
That's the same
and
company.
I actually work with one of like a yoga teacher that works really closely with them
Oh,
and
no
teaches
way.
there and everything now too.
God,
It's
that's
great. Like it's all
crazy.
full circle.
What
She's one of my
where
clients.
where was the first festival they did?
This wasn't their first one, but it was the first one I worked with them.
Right.
It was in Stratton, Vermont.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That was when I was living in Rhode Island.
Oh,
So
that's
like
perfect.
worked out perfectly. I drove my car up there, and that was like my first like solo adventure too, because
Yeah.
I was by myself. I went to like this event. I didn't know anything about even writing or even networking, which shows because I left the event and I didn't like get anyone's number. I didn't like follow up with working with them because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
So those were my 2 first jobs. It was about 5 years ago, and then since then I kind of just really lightly dabbled with freelance writing. I wasn't sure if it was exactly what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Nashville. I was a waitress for 2 years, and I was just like, I need to figure out like what I want, like what's my passion, what makes me wake up in the morning and be like so excited to like, go and start my day. And I know there's something, like I could feel it in me. So that's when I kind of just kept coming back to writing. And then I was like, all right, why don't I stop just dabbling with this, and why don't I like take it really seriously?
Yeah.
So I quit my job, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start traveling the world, and I'm going to become a writer. And that's kind of how it all started.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, what were you writing about before, like, you made it into, like, a full-time thing and started working for other people? Writing.
Like, as a freelance writer?
Yeah, like, what would you write about after, like, you said you were a waitress. What were you writing about when you were just, like, doing it for
It would
fun?
just be anything I could pick up. So I
I see.
landed those 2 gigs, like Elite Daily and Wanderlust, and then I leveraged those to create an Upwork account.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started just like applying to different jobs on there and kind of getting a feel for like, is this a viable career? Like, is this something that I can do and like pull off? Because I honestly really doubted myself.
Yeah.
And that's like what took me so long to fully commit, because I was like, I don't know, like, can I really do this? And so I would honestly write anything. Like in the past, I've written like product descriptions. I've written for like website copy for trucking companies.
Oh.
I have written like things that when I was writing them, I was like, no, this isn't what I want to do, because this is like painful.
Yeah.
But it was through all those opportunities that I started working with like the right clients, and like I was able to be led in the direction that I wanted to with like, what do I want to write about? I started working with entrepreneurs. I started writing about business development, and like that's where I really found my niche of like, I love this stuff.
That's
I love
awesome.
digital marketing, and now like those are the clients that I work with.
Yeah. Ah, very cool.
Yeah.
So then, where was your first trip that you took that, like, you were still working? It wasn't obviously not just a trip. You were also getting into the digital nomad type life.
The first trip that really opened my eyes up to traveling was this super random trip I took to Barcelona in 2016.
Oh,
yeah, I was waitressing still, really, really lightly dabbling with like freelance writing.
Right.
Like probably making like $10 an hour doing it, working like very minimally.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend was like, hey, I'm going to Barcelona. If you want to come. We're like leaving in a month. And I was like,
wow.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. And I'd been waitressing at a really good job, and I had a good amount of savings. So I was like, you know what? Something's telling me to just go on this trip. So I booked my ticket, went to Barcelona with them, and it was like a week-long trip. We went to Barcelona and Rome. So it was like we were moving fast.
Yeah.
And when we were there, I started meeting all these people. We went on like a pub crawl.
Okay.
And we're talking to everyone there, and we started talking to these backpackers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, like we've been traveling for 3 months. And I was like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, like we just came. I remember specifically these 2 girls we met. They're like, we just came from Egypt. Wow. And like now we're going to go and do like a whole Euro trip. Mm-hmm. And then we met these like other Canadian guys that were like, we're doing a whole Euro trip for all of summer. And that was the first thing that opened my eyes up to people traveling like long term versus what we were doing, where we were just there for like a week.
Right.
And we were trying to see as much as we could, as fast as we could.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait a second. If these people are doing it, that's so cool. Like, I could try and do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so that Barcelona trip changed my life, because that was the moment that I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and do this.
Yeah.
And so that was in June of 2016. And in June of 2017, I left for like my first digital nomad trip. I like officially sold all my stuff, put my backpack on, and like hit the road.
Where was it? Where'd you go?
Costa Rica.
Oh my gosh, that's where oh my God, that's like at the top of my list.
It was incredible.
It's somewhere I'm actually considering potentially moving to in the near future. I think I'll end up leaving LA soon. But yeah, Costa Rica just seems like so amazing. And there's a big expat community there.
There could be, for sure. I was
where were you?
like not focused on work at all when I was there.
Oh,
so I was just backpacking and like
very cool.
Hanging out with like backpackers who were like moving from city to city to city.
Okay.
And that was me kind of just like drunk on this idea of like digital nomadism and exploring and just like being out in the world for the first time.
Right.
So I didn't like find like a co-working space or anything like that. Like I was seriously working from the jungles of Costa Rica and like hoping I could find Wi-Fi and like making very minimal money. Really? But just living like my dream and what I felt I needed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your parents feel about that?
It's funny because so 2 years prior to me becoming like a digital nomad, I moved to Nashville.
Okay.
And I had this conversation with my dad when I was thinking about moving, because I graduated college and then I moved to Nashville just to move somewhere. Like there was no other reason.
Right.
Like I was like, I just want to move somewhere different. And I had a friend at the time who was like, I'll move with you. Somehow Nashville came into the picture and we're like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I like went to lunch with my dad and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Nashville in Tennessee, and we're in Rhode Island. So he's like, why? Like, don't leave. Like, that's so far away. And he's like, okay, but we'll see what happens. And then I really ended up moving. Mm-hmm. So then when I went to talk to him and be like, hey, I'm thinking of like going and just traveling the world, like selling all my stuff and just backpacking and doing this thing called being a digital nomad. Mm-hmm. Like he already knew that the last conversation we had, like I did it. Yeah. And I could see it in his face. He's like, no. That he was like, no.
She's leaving again,
and
even
he was
further.
Like, yeah, exactly. And I was supposed to go with my friend, who I went to Barcelona with.
Okay.
But she ended up, she broke her, she like tore her MCL.
Oh, okay.
And she ended up not being able to go because she had to have surgery. Oh. And so then I had this whole like moment of, okay, there's no one else to go with me. Do I just like stop this plan of like going and traveling, or do I just go by myself? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go by myself. And then my dad really was like, can you please just not do that? Oh. And I was like, I have to go and do it.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky because both my parents are really supportive. They're like, okay, go and do it, but like just be really safe and like stay in contact with us. Yeah. And like I'm old enough now that like they know it's not something that they can be like, you can't go do this anymore.
Exactly.
You know, I'm just old enough that they're like, if that's what you want to do, like, what are we going to say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good that they were at least, like, supportive. I'm sure every every parent's a little bit hesitant. I kind of did the same thing after college. I sold everything and I was like, I'm gonna go travel and figure it out while I travel. And my parents were supportive, definitely. But I talked about so much different solo travel that they were just like, wait, you're going where alone? No, you're not. Like, that's not safe. Well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the places I was like considering going alone probably weren't safe. But yeah, that's good that your parents were like supportive of everything. So then what would like a typical day in the life of a digital nomad freelancer be like?
So,
well, your typical day.
Being a digital nomad, probably the hardest thing to come to terms with is that there is no normal day. It's like every day is so different and every day has different challenges. So, for example, if I'm in Central America and I'm in Costa Rica, right? It's like maybe my normal day is I wake up, I write a few articles in the morning, then we go to like a national park, and then later that day we go surfing, and then we come back, and like that's the day, and it sounds really great and romantic, right? But then on the reverse, it's like sometimes you're in places where the Wi-Fi is only available for like 4 hours in the morning. And after that, like, I don't know what happens to it, but it just disappears.
Yeah.
So in that case, like a typical day is like waking up whenever that Wi-Fi is the strongest, getting everything done in that tiny chunk of time, regardless of if you have the time to or not. Like you're like, this is the only time I have to submit anything that I need, work on anything in a Google Doc, whatever I need to do.
Right.
And then go and do like all the fun like digital nomad things.
Yeah.
So the typical day is just adapting to the environment you're in and working with what you have in that moment.
Right. I feel like it's really easy to see all of these people on Instagram and their cool photos of them traveling and stuff, but you don't really see the part that's trying to cram in all your work in the 4-hour time slot of like the Wi-Fi and everything. So
yeah, there's so much unseen, and that's really what I try and bring into my articles and my personal brand to say like,
right.
I want to be the person that I didn't see when I decided to become a digital nomad, because all I saw was like the highlight reel.
Exactly.
And then I went and did it, and like I fell flat on my face because nobody told me that like, hey, there's going to be places where you don't have Wi-Fi and you are going to struggle in order to really build a business while traveling full time.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, if you want to become a digital nomad, here's the reality of it. It's totally sustainable. It's totally possible, but just know like these are the challenges coming, and like here's how to overcome them. Here's how to prepare. So instead of coming and facing them, like you're prepared for them.
Yeah. I've noticed the articles you write on Medium are very transparent about all of that.
Yeah.
And that's awesome because people don't really consider that when they see these like people on Instagram and exactly. Yeah. Cool. So then when things get stressful, which I assume they do, with having to worry about deadlines and having to worry about Wi-Fi and all that stuff, how do you handle stress?
I think that, well, let me say, becoming a digital nomad changed who I am as a person.
That's beautiful, first off. Yes. I love that. Okay.
Who I am now versus who I was 2 years ago are two different people. I think I've always been a more like mellow, passive person, but now it's just insane. For me to get stressed out, it takes so much because I have just dealt with so much ridiculous stuff happening, like waking up and being like, here's gonna be like my normal day as a digital nomad, and then you're like, I'm just gonna go to the grocery store really quick, and you go to the grocery store and instead of taking an hour, it takes you like 4 hours, and you're like, okay, now I have to adapt. That was not supposed to take that long. For whatever reason, I'm in a new city, like I couldn't figure out public transport or something like that. You never know, right? So it's just really mellowed me out to wake up and be like, anything can happen.
That's very interesting, yeah. You're good with adversity.
Exactly, and it's just kind of saying, I'm ready to adapt at any minute. So whether that adaptation is a client saying, hey, like, can you do, like, this instead? I'm like, okay, sure, I don't mind. Or if I'm at home and, like, I'm trying to work, but maybe, like, my roommates are loud, adapt. It's like, okay, whatever, who cares? This is just, like, now I just need to focus extra.
Yeah.
You know, it's that adaptation of just wherever I am, I'm going to make it work. That removes all the stress from your life.
Yeah. Very interesting. Good way of looking at it.
Yeah. It's a mindset. It's totally a mindset.
That's such a good point. We stress out about things that we really can't control, too. And when you do that, it's like, okay, you're that's unnecessary stress, because then it's like you can't control that thing that you're worried about, whether it be bills or your car or this or I don't know. Like now I'm thinking of things that like probably aren't too worrisome for a digital nomad, but it's like we focus on these things that we can't control and get so stressed over them that stress isn't necessary.
Yes. And
if you switch your mindset, shift it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're putting the stress on yourself. Like, that's what you really have to recognize. Like, none of those situations are stressful.
Mm-hmm.
It's just your choice to see it, like, in a stressful way.
Yeah. There you go.
It's just a choice.
There you go. That's a good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one of, I guess you kind of alluded to some of them, but what would you say is the biggest struggle you've encountered being a freelancer?
Business development, for sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because it's really easy to create an unscalable business. Mm-hmm. And that comes really easily as a writer, because every client comes to you and they want something different. Everybody wants an article, but there's like small tweaks to each article.
Right.
So it's like each client wants something just slightly different, that if you have enough clients, all of a sudden your head is spinning, because you're like, okay, like time to write this article, but wait, what does this client want? And like, now I'm going to write this next one, but like this one wants something different. And keeping up with all of that gets really overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So like part of my 2019 goals, it's to say, okay, how do I create packages and like stop customizing specifically for each client?
Right.
So that I can scale this.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because I only have so much brain power, and right now it's like my brain power is used. Yeah. So it's like, how do I regain more of that power? Mm-hmm. It's by creating these packages that make it so that I don't have to like look at each client so individually. I can just look at them as like a whole.
Right. Okay. Creating system. Well, I guess it's kind of a system, sort of. But
yeah. Essentially creating like systems and processes that make it more streamlined. Mm-hmm. So kind of looking at my business as more of an agency versus like me just as a freelance writer.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Mm-hmm. There was a question I was going to ask. Oh, if someone wanted to figure out if they like writing, if writing something they would want to do, what advice would you have for them for testing it out or trying it?
Oh my gosh, go on Medium, go on Quora, and just start writing. Yeah. I mean, it's a digital age. You can do anything you want. Yeah. I wrote an article on this just saying, like, if you want to be a writer these days, like, there's no excuse to not be one. Mm-hmm. Because you have these free platforms, and like we were talking about before, like, Medium will pay you now. If you write a good enough article and people like it, you will get money for it. Yeah. It's like, it's pretty wild. When in this world have you been able to open up an account, write something, and then get paid for it without doing anything else? Never. Yeah. Like, the opportunity is incredible right now. If you want to be a writer and you think you want to be one, just start writing online.
And same, like, Medium, Quora, you can kind of just write about whatever.
Whatever you want.
Literally write your life story if you wanted to. Like, you can write whatever you want. It's pretty wild. Yeah. And like you said, Medium pays. Like, you could write about your experience, I don't know, in Barcelona, and like if people like it, you'll get paid for it. It's just it's pretty wild. Mm-hmm. What's one of your best travel stories you have? I guess best is kind of vague. Let's say unexpectedly exciting.
I think one of my favorite moments, like the first thing that always comes to me when I think of like a very warm travel moment, was last year I went to Bali. I was in Canggu for about 6 weeks. Okay. And I stayed in this hostel that it was like this one room with like 12 beds in it. And we ended up creating like this family out of all of the backpackers that were in there. And most of us were solo. So we were just like all on the same quest for like adventure and just spontaneity. And we created this like huge family. And there's just a moment where I was like sitting there and just like looking around at everyone. And it's like my heart like couldn't be more full, because it was all these strangers from around the world, and we had such a love for each other, and like it was exactly what I wanted when I went to go backpacking, and I didn't realize that's what I was seeking. But it was like I had this home away from home with all these strangers that I didn't even know like a month before. Mm-hmm. And we were all just like so genuine and authentically cared about each other, and like when we had to say goodbye, everyone was crying, and we were like, this was just like a moment only available to us, and right then and there, like that will never come back.
That's so awesome.
And it was just
do you still keep in contact with a lot of them?
All of them. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. Travel, it's a crazy thing. Like
meet people. And when you meet people here, you know, it's like a long process of like getting to know each other and opening up. But when you're traveling, it's like people are so much more ready to be vulnerable and open, and just you're kind of in this world where you have the same, you're looking for the same type of things. You're looking for finding yourself, kind of, or like trying to explore and just really figuring out who you are and stuff. And so people are just more open. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And it changes you too. It opens you up to people, and it makes you just realize how much you have in common with everyone.
Right.
And it's another thing that changes your perspective. Like just how it can be really hard for me to get stressed out now. It's the same thing where it's like, it's really hard for me to walk into a room and like really not be able to make friends.
Yeah.
Because now I'm just like, we're all just in this together, and like we all have so many commonalities. Like I no longer see someone from a different country as so different than me. I'm like, no, we're just all the same, and we all have goals and aspirations, and you know, it's so beautiful.
That's really cool. That's such a good point. Before I traveled and everything, I was always so nervous to talk to people or be like the one to speak up in a room. But wow, now I'm just like, whatever. I tell people like, I want to do public speaking, and they're like, whoa, what? And I'm just like, what's wrong with that? Like, it does. It's definitely changes you for the better. Exactly. The mindset. Realizing that people aren't that different. I ask 2 questions for everyone that comes onto my podcast. The first one being, what advice would you give your younger self? So say maybe your younger self that's before you decided to start trying writing when you were in Nashville, or before you even moved to Nashville. Not necessarily career advice, but life advice.
Ooh, that's tough.
Yeah.
I think I would tell my younger self to just be more gentle on myself. Because for a while I felt really, I don't want to say like a failure, but really, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I don't have a passion. I don't feel purposeful. I'm not making any impact. What am I doing? Like, I'm wasting my time. Like, what's going on? And what would have helped me then was to stop being my own worst critic and just support myself and say, hey, you're going to figure it out.
I totally get that.
Yeah. I was talking to one of my roommates the other day, and we were saying how we speak to ourselves in a way like we would never speak to a friend.
I know, isn't it
so
wild?
Yeah, so it's
our
like,
inner critic is just so mean sometimes. Yeah, I try to practice the idea of talking to my 5-year-old self or talking to my best friend when I like say things inside my head. I would never say that to my best friend, or I would never say that to a 5-year-old version of myself. No way. That's good advice. Really
exactly.
Good. Then the other one, what do you hustle for?
I hustle for my happiness, and that's kind of an umbrella term, because my happiness is like up here, and then underneath that is my career, just because for me my career means a lot to me. I really love succeeding and proving to myself that I can do things.
Totally. Yeah.
So my career, I hustle for my relationships with my friends, my family. Any digital nomad knows, or even like an entrepreneur or self-employed person, it is so hard to be trying to build a career and maintain your relationships back home.
Oh, okay.
Because you're so busy, and like your bandwidth is just, your brain power's gone.
Yeah.
But still, when your friend comes to you and they're like crying because of something, you have to be there.
Yeah.
And so I hustle for those moments when I'm like, I can't possibly take anything else on my plate, and a friend or my family comes to me and says like, hey, I need to call or talk with you. So I hustle to say, okay, yeah, I'll take that call even though I'm exhausted. I don't think I have it within me. I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's my career, my family, and then I also hustle for my health. So I'm only going to be as good as the body that I'm in. If I'm not taking care of my body, it's not going to last me until I'm 90 years old.
Exactly. Yeah.
I studied biology and chemistry in school, and
cool.
it really woke me up to the idea of just how much is going on every day within us, how many processes and reactions and everything. So I try and support my body the best that I can and just be like the healthiest version of myself.
Yeah.
But with that said, it's like an 80-20 thing. So it's like 80% of the time I try and stay really healthy, and 20% of the time, you know, like I go out, I enjoy myself, I'll eat pizza, you know. It's not like die hard, like I'll only eat really, really healthy, but, you know, it's the majority of my time.
Yeah. Aside from like food and stuff, do you find it hard to be healthy when you're on the go and like...
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so hard.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a hustle, because if you are, it's the same thing as like adapting. I have, like, my fitness routine can't be that I just do yoga or that I just do like body weight exercises or that I'm just going on long runs, because that's not always available to me. Like, my fitness routine is what is available to me wherever I am in the world at that one moment. Yeah. So it's always adapting.
Adaptation. I love that.
Adapt.
Even if you're not a digital nomad, just adapting to what life throws at you, because life will throw things at you. So being able to bend and mold, I guess, is kind of to everything that's going on.
Yeah. It's cool. Like the quote, what does it say? Like, the only thing guaranteed in life is change. Yeah. So you kind of have to go through, like, I literally wake up each day and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I have no clue, but I know what I can control. And then I know that I can control my adaptation, and I can say, okay, something changes with business, I'm going to adapt. Something changes with, like, one of my friends or family, I adapt to fit that. Everything is just an adaptation.
Very cool.
And then there's no stress, because you're always just like, oh, something's going to change, and I'm just ready for it. Who cares?
It's kind of, I wrote something about expectations. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like, if you're expecting something to happen one way, you're going to be very stressed out when it doesn't happen that way, which you can't control, and it could not happen that way. Okay, I love that one. Yeah.
I was talking to my best friend the other day about this, actually, and we were saying how, this sounds so pessimistic, but we were saying how, like, we keep our expectations at almost zero for anything. But it's, like, not in a negative way. It's more so in a way of just, like, you never know. Like, don't expect anything from anything. So when I book a one-way ticket to Bali, I have no expectations of what's going to happen. Right. I'm like, I want to go to Bali, and I'm going to go to Bali, and, like, that's the end of that story. Yeah. Like, the story continues when I get there. There's no, like, I really hope I find this, and I really hope that I get to go and climb this volcano and see this. I'm like, no, whatever happens when I get there happens, and it's meant to happen, and I'm going to adapt as I go through the days and I'm on that trip.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
And it works really well in business too.
There you go. I don't think that's negative at all. Okay. I think that's smart. If anything.
It just keeps you mellow, because you're like, okay, exactly, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and keep up with you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is @therrandomlifeofava.
I love that.
Spell EVA. And then you can find me on Quora, Medium, Twitter. If you just Google my name, Ava Gutierrez, you'll find me.
Do you want to spell your last name?
Yeah.
It'll all be in the show notes, but I can barely say it.
I don't have a brand-friendly name at all. Okay. My last name is Gutierrez. Easy.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All that will be in the show notes and everything. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for driving down to Manhattan Beach from Hollywood.
I know, we're in person.
I know, yeah. We didn't say it before. This interview is in person. Yeah, very cool. And it's finally sunny. Were you here for all the rain?
Yeah. What's with that?
You're like, as someone that lives in Los Angeles, what happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. That happens every now and then, but honestly, and around this time, but this year was really bad. Really, really bad. And honestly, I feel so bad for, like, the Malibu area, because, like, after the fires and everything, all of that, like, brush and everything just, like, slid down. They're constantly having horrible mudslides. But, I don't know. This is, like, the greenest we've seen LA, and I've lived here 7.5 years. Like, this is the greenest I've seen LA in a long time.
Yeah, it's nice. I was actually in an Uber, like, the Uber the other day, and I was talking to the Uber driver, and he's like, yeah, like, all this rain. I was like, I know, like, it was so annoying. And he's like, yeah, but we needed it. And I was like, gosh, you're so right. Like, why am I even complaining? Like, it barely affected me. Like, who cares? I'm like, it was so worth it to have that and, like, nourish this incredible city. Like, it needed it.
I was saying that on actually another podcast I had. I feel like sometimes LA kind of needs it, because we and, like, the people of LA, we're so used to, like, these beautiful days and everything, and it's like, all right, we can remember that we're, like, not always perfect. We can handle a week of rain compared to our 365 days of sunshine.
Exactly.
We'll live. Yeah.
Exactly.
And exactly, our desert climate needs it.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, that was a great point, and that, like, centered me again to be like, Ava, this world is not revolving around you. Yeah. Everything needs to happen for a reason. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you, and I hope and how long are you going to be in LA for? Is it in, like,
great question.
You don't know type of thing?
I have no idea.
That's fun. No expectations.
I'm on a month-to-month lease, so.
There you go.
We'll see. Fun. I think 2019. If I can, like, control myself from traveling, which I want to do, I'm, like, cutting myself off. I'll be here for all of 2019, and then I'll do like a little bit of traveling in and out, maybe like 3 or 4 trips.
Yeah.
And that'll be like my max, and I'll make this my home base.
Very cool. I love that.
I think that's my plan.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Adaptation though, so
exactly.
maybe it's gonna change. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being here. I'll put all of Ava's I'm gonna say that wrong. All of Ava's links in the show notes, and you guys can follow along there, and you can look at her website. She's a badass copywriter and blogger and writer, everything. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright guys, thank you for listening this week. I am so excited that you were here. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to, you can follow me on Instagram at wanderwithkirstie, WANDER with KIRSTIE. And I'm also on Twitter. I'm kind of active on it, and that's just Wellness Hustle, at Wellness Hustle. And if you really fucking love me, I would so much appreciate it if you rated me on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts. Yeah, be awesome. Seriously, guys, one more time, thank you so much for listening. I do this for you guys, and it means the world to me that you listen to these podcasts. I can't wait for next week. Until then, remember, keep hustling for yourself, because you deserve it.